Polymers products as your ADA sign production solution. This demonstration will cover the major workflows used to design ADA compliant signage in the Workflow Manager program. The workflows we will discuss are initial program preparation and setup, creating a sign using ADA raised text, ganging up a sheet of signs, ganging up a sheet of serialized signs, ganging up a sheet of signs using a replacement data file, outputting the visual elements to a PDF file, outputting the routed elements to DXF for output to a CNC machine. Before using Workflow Manager for the first time, there are a few setups you may need to do. The first thing you'll want to do is go to Options, Workflow Setup, Registration Crop Mark Setup. In this dialog box, you'll see settings for both registration marks and for crop marks. The top section is for the crop marks, and that's to help you cut apart the signs after they've been produced. The bottom part is for the reg marks. The registration marks are small circular objects that help you register the polymer sheet on the routing machine if you're using a routed method of taking apart the signs individually. These are the default values, and generally speaking, they don't need to be changed. The second thing you'll want to do is create a custom ADA raised or visual compliant font group. To do that, you go to the text tool, select the Font Select button, which is the big blue F in the upper left corner, which brings you to something called the Font Detective. We're going to create, for the purpose of this demonstration, an ADA raised compliant group. You'll see there are some existing groups here already by default, and we're going to add one more. I'm going to go to the Options button and select Add Group, and I'm going to call it ADA Raised. I'm going to use the contents of all fonts in order to create the group with, and I'm going to ask for ADA Raised Compliant Filtering. I'm going to click on OK. You'll see now that there is filtering in progress. The result of this filtering will be a list of ADA raised compliant fonts. So now that the group is created, I click on Select to the right of the group. And now in my font list, I have a list of ADA raised compliant fonts. You'll notice that all of them are sans serif, are not bold fonts. In short, they all conform to the ADA standard for raised text. The next thing you may need to do, and you may need to do this on a job-by-job basis, or I should say, or a contract-by-contract basis, is layout, panel size. This is where you select the size of the individual sign that you will be making, and you'll be selecting whether or not it's for interior use or exterior use. In our example, let's say that you're doing an individual sign that's only 6 inches wide by 3 inches high, and we'll say that it is for interior use. This option here is in order to create either a smaller or larger dot for the Braille to adapt to the different reactivity of the photopolymer that's used for exterior use. The exterior polymer reacts differently than the interior polymer does, so you need a slightly larger dot if you are doing exterior signs. So I've now created a 6x3 sign blank. The next thing you will want to do is make sure that your ADA font options are set up correctly. To do this, click on the text tool, click on any of the text tools from the flyout, and click anywhere on the screen. Right-click on this button here, and it will display the Braille Properties dialog box. By default, BR Punch is the selected font. If there is nothing listed in this dialog here, you may browse for it through this Browse button. If you're doing Braille signage for California, you may also browse for a font called BR Punch CA. And that will allow you to use California compliant Braille. The California Braille cell is slightly wider than the non-California Braille. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'll be using non-California. The default height in here is 0.395, and we recommend that you never ever change this value. Translation by default is set at English and grade 2. There are other languages also available, but only for the grade 1 level. These three items down here, force raise text to uppercase, translate Braille as lowercase, enforce ADA Braille spacing, enforce ADA spacing rules, is to allow you to ensure compliance. Force raise text to uppercase means that even if you do not have your caps lock turned on, the visual portion of the letters will type in uppercase. Translate Braille as lowercase means that even if you're typing in uppercase, the leading dots that are normally associated with sentence or full case will be omitted. Last but not least, enforced ADA spacing rules, among other things, ensures that the font that you are using is ADA compliant, and if it is not, it will complain that it is not, but will then allow you to go ahead and use that font anyways in case it's required to do so. Okay, I'm now going to go on to creating a basic sign using ADA raised text. All right? We're now going to cover creating a basic sign using ADA raised text. First, I'm going to set up my panel size, layout, panel size. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I will use a 6x3 panel and with interior Braille dots. Note that if you're using a routed method of cutting apart your signs, you may wish to oversize your sign slightly by equal to the diameter of the tool that you're using to cut apart the signs. Thereby, when they do cut apart, you will wind up with a finished product of the correct size. The next thing you may wish to do is to create a rectangle the size of the plate, of the panel, I should say. To do that, go to Layout, Plate Object, and that immediately creates a rectangle the same size as the panel. Next, create another one of those. Layout, Plate Object. You don't see anything happening, but believe me, there is a second rectangle there, as we can see here, and one just happens to be on top of the other. This one I'm going to turn into what's known as a contour cut object, and that's forming the cut line that can be used by the router to cut apart the objects. So I'm just going to turn on contour cut on off. So now we have a cut line and we have a rectangle. The next thing we'll do is create some text for the sign. And I will use, in this case, the ADA raised text tool to do that. I found that the easiest is to drag a text box the same size as your sign and release. Automatically, the box snaps onto the edge of the panel, making it very easy for you to get the correct size text box. In order to create the necessary offsets from the edge, in order to be ADA compliant, we use margins. Those margins are set in this tool up here under Frame Properties. Right here are the values for that. And if I need to, I can certainly increase the values in here. If I need to. depending on the specification that's required, and of course a minimum of 0.365. Here I've oversized the margin slightly to allow for a router to go around the edge of this, but again, it's up to the individual to set it as necessary and correctly. You'll also notice an option up here that says that the frame is fixed width and fixed height. That's because I dragged the text box, and that allows it to, that automatically makes it a fixed size. I'm also going to set something in this button here. This brings me to the horizontal compression dialog and allows me to specify word wrap, whether to word wrap or not. In my case, I want to word wrap, and usually one wants to word wrap. To do that, one enables this option here, and then I can also set a compression to an allowable compression before the words will wrap. If you're already using a fairly compressed font, or condensed font I should say, you may wish to set this to 0. If you know that your font can withstand a little bit of compression before becoming non-ADA compliant, then you could put that value in there. I'm just going to click on OK. And now I'll show you the results of that. Change that to white. You see how the words wrapped after it hit the end. If I do not set word wrap, what will happen is the letters will compress and compress and compress, and they'll quickly become non-compliant. You will notice that while I'm typing, the text is automatically being translated into Braille. You'll also notice that even though I don't have my caps lock on, it is translating in it is typing in uppercase and translating in lowercase. In other words, there are no leading dots. The sign that I just created to create multiples of it, to gang up a sheet of an entire sheet of these onto a sheet of 25 by 19. So I'm going to select everything using the F3 key, and I'm going to go Layout, Sheet Setup. The Sheet Setup dialog contains the controls necessary for me to gang up an entire sheet of these. There's a preview at the bottom which shows the effect of the controls being used within the sheet. And I'm going to ask for as many as it takes to fill up the entire sheet. You'll see as I'm increasing the number of copies, the sheet preview shows an increasing number of panels being put on the sheet. I've selected a custom size sheet and of a height 25 inches and of a width of 19 inches. And that's what you're seeing in the sheet preview below, is the effects of that. I've set a 0.25 inch margin top and a 0.25 inch margin left in order to give me some clearance for the registration marks. You'll see that in a moment. For now, I'm not substituting this text. I'm just going to let it do multiples of the same thing. I'm going to click on OK. And now I have an entire sheet of room 100s. You'll notice that the small registration marks are in the corners. And you'll notice that each sign also has a crop mark. I'll now gang up the same sheet of signs using serialization. I'll select everything using F3, go to Layout, Sheet Setup, and this time I'll ask for, I don't know, 39 signs. You'll see that it's now gone on to 2 pages. I'm going to use all the same settings for the size of the sheet and the margins, but this time I'm going to select my room 100 to be replaced with something else. I'm going to click on OK, and now instead of it immediately ganging up the sheet of signs, it's now asking me what I want to do with the text that I'm asking to be substituted. In this case, we only have one text item, and here it is in a single column along the top. If I had multiple text items, you would see multiple columns along the top. I'm going to click on that, and immediately you'll see this serialization button becomes active. So I'm going to click on that. The program has automatically picked up the fact that this is the item, and it's automatically determined that this number 100 is a number and could be used as the base because it's populated it down here. But this is only a model for a sign. This is not a real sign. So what if the numbering starts at, let's say, 201, and that's where you want your numbering to start from? So I'm going to sweep select 100 and change it to 201. I'm going to sweep select 201 again and hit Set as Base. You'll notice that the base down here has now changed to say 201. I'm going to ask for an increment of 1 so that the numbering will go 201, 202, etc. And I'll ask for only a repeat of 1. If I needed 2 signs per room, I could say repeat 2, and it would create 2 of each. Click on OK. And in this text substitution dialog, you'll now see that it has filled in the room numbers. If there was a special request and they said, well, there actually is not a room 201, but there are actually 2 room 202 signs that we need, I can change that right here manually like that and then carry on. So it has now created 2 pages of signs. Here's the page selector down here. I will go to the second page, and you can see that there are indeed 2 pages of signs. Each page has the registration marks in the corners, as well as the crop marks on each sign. I'll zoom in. You can see that it has created 2 room 202s as requested when customized, and you'll see that it has indeed translated all of this on the fly. There's room number sign 202, room number sign 203. We'll now cover ganging up a sheet of signs using a replacement data file. For this demonstration, I'll use a slightly different file. Before I get going, I'm going to show you what a replacement data file looks like in order to help you create your own replacement data files when required. This file is a plain text tab delimited file that contains 3 columns of data and 9 records. As you can see, it's not necessary that all fields be filled. For example, the second record, 132 library, has only 1 piece of text where the other ones have 2. It's highly recommended that for any non-serialized job where you will need to spell out the names of sign, the names of rooms, etc., that you get this data from your customer and that you create this file before getting started. In this way, if a mistake is made or something, you need a partial redo of something, or just for practicing to get it all formatted correctly, you're not having to input data each and every time. So using this as the model, we'll now gang up a sheet of signs using that replacement data. I'm going to select everything again using F3, Layout, Sheet Setup. Down here there's an option for replacement data file, so I'm going to enable that, and I'm going to hit Browse. I'm going to select that file that we already showed you and click on Open. So now that appears down here, roomandname.txt. Use tab as the delimiter in this case because the file is tab delimited. Generally speaking, that's what's recommended, as it is most likely to be successful because it's unlikely that there will be tabs in your data. I'm going to sweep select these three items, and you'll note that the number 9 is up here. That's not accidental. The program has automatically gone in and read the number of records in that file and put that number up here. So now I'm going to click on OK, and you'll see that it has drawn the data in and populated a total of 3 columns. As usual, you can manually modify data. If I want to, I could put the word library admin here and click on OK. So now we have 2 pages, and I'll just zoom in a little bit. You see that the translation has happened on the fly. There's admin office, and there's sports center, or I should say 178 sports center. The second page is here. To cover outputting the visual elements to a PDF file so that they may be used in your RIP. We'll now use that previously created sheet of signs to prepare the visual elements for output to your RIP. Depending on what RIP you're using, you may or may not need to mirror the signs prior to output. If you do, simply select F3 to select everything. Go to Arrange, go to Layout, Size Move, Mirror, Horizontal, and now everything is mirrored. Likewise, on page 2, select everything, Layout, Size Move, Mirror, Horizontal. To output these signs, you'll go File, Publish to PDF. Those previously created signs and output them to a PDF file so that they may be printed by your raster image processor or RIP program. Depending on the RIP, you may or may not need to mirror these signs on screen prior to output. If you do need to mirror them, select everything, go to Layout, Size Move, Mirror, Horizontal. You may need to move the sign in a bit into the there, and go to the second page and do the same thing. F3, Layout, Size, Move, Mirror, Horizontal. To output to PDF, select everything, although I don't think that step's actually required. Go to File, Publish to PDF. I'm going to put a name here. We'll say simply sign. and click Save. A PDF settings dialog now appears. These are the default values as you see them now. If you're sending out something for proofing or for editing or for any reason and you're concerned about the security of that file, you may add forbid editing and or forbid printing, and then you will need to put a password in. Thus, nobody will be able to print or edit your work without knowing the password. So I'll click on OK. This page selection dialog is asking me what pages to print. As you recall, we have 2 pages, and I'm going to ask for all of them. It has now printed the pages to a PDF file. Here is the output area that they printed to. You'll notice that there is 1 file for each page. To show you the results of it, I'll open this in Adobe Acrobat, and you can see that indeed the output is there. Likewise, second page, and there's the output for the second page, including crop marks and red marks. Now we're going to output the routed or vector elements for use on a CNC machine. To do that, go File, Export, and select the DXF line type of file. There are approximately 4 different DXF formats that you can choose from. I recommend the DXF line one as the one to use, as it has the greatest chance of success. Again, I'll name the file simply Sign and hit Export. This dialog is reminding you that it's going to be only exporting the registration marks and the cut lines. So I say yes. And again, we do have 2 pages, so it allows me to select what pages to print, in this case, all. So it has now output 2 DXF files containing just the cut data. DXF files have now been created in the same output area as I put the printed data. One would not normally do this, but I will show you the results of one of those DXF files. I'm just going to import the file and bring it here on screen beside the original. I'll make it a little bit more visible. So we can see that there are the 3 registration marks right here and cut lines, the square cut lines. Those cut lines correspond to those contour cut lines that we set up in the very beginning of the demonstration. So these lines are the only lines that will be cut, and you can register the output to your router against the sheet using the registration marks that also are in the output. For further information, please visit Nova Polymers at novapolymers.com or contact by phone at 888-484-6682. Thanks again for choosing Nova Polymers products as your ADA sign production solution.